And welcome back to another episode of the Outside 50 podcast brought to you by US Footy News. I'm your host, Rick Shaibani, and joining me a little bit later on today will be Wayne Kraska, my co host. And today we are having a chat with Ryan Downey, who is the team captain and a longtime player with the Atlanta Kookaburras. How you doing today, Ryan?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a rainy night here in Atlanta, but that's the norm here lately. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, glad we could have you on. So let's kind of get right into it. Start off at the beginning. How did you get involved with footy to start with, and what brought you to the Cookers?
Sure. I mean, it's like most of my sporting adventures was half intention and half accident, really, how I came by both Atlanta Kookaburras and footy as a sport. So I moved back to Atlanta in 2013 after spending a number of years up in Chicago, both for grad school and then eventually for work. And when I came back, I had decided to retire from rugby union, having suffered far too many injuries over the 6 years that I played that sport. And just looking up what was going on in my neighborhood, and I found out that the footy team was playing about 2 blocks away from the house I just moved into in my neighborhood in Atlanta, and walked over and had a go. And uh, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually come from a rugby background myself. I only played it casually and wasn't really that good at it. But yeah, it's not too bad of a transition. Obviously, Aussie rules is a little more challenging when it comes to the rules and the gameplay and the different things you can or can't do. But it's easy enough to transition, and it requires just as much athleticism, if not more so. And same for the physicality of it. So that's great. And so you've been involved with the Cookers for 6 years now?
Yeah, so actually played my first game back in June of 2014. It was a road game up in Nashville, and been going about 6 years now. I just passed my 50 game threshold last season, which is a pretty good one, and excited to keep marching towards whatever number Krazz is sitting at now.
There you go. And I want to say I'm at like 32 USAFL games, something like that. And recently got back from Australia, so it'll be good to get back with the Dragons. We just started up our training sessions, so it's going to be a really fun season. And so uh, I'm being told that you're on the board this year. You're the secretary of the club.
Yeah, I've actually been on the board every year since I joined the team. So I think at my first AGM, I was nominated for a board position. And since then, I'd reckon this is my fourth or fifth year serving in one capacity or another. I started out as a recruitment manager, moved into secretary, was an at large member one year when I was traveling more heavily for work. And now I'm back to being our secretary. So doing a tour of all of the roles, I think.
That's awesome. And how have you found that in terms of like uh, dealing with different personalities at the club, and getting social events organized, and the financial end of it, and recruiting, all those different variables that are in play when you're involved with a footy club. How's that been
Yeah.
going?
We could do a whole episode about each one of the things you just said: finances, recruiting, managing the interesting personalities. I'll say first, from a non-footy perspective, it's been pretty instructive. I've recently moved into an executive director role of a decent-sized nonprofit here in Atlanta, working with youth, and I think some of the things that I learned being on this board have been great transferable skills that helped prepare me for that role. And then some of the things I'm learning as an executive director, managing my board of directors, I think is going to be helpful, and I could bring back to how we govern our organization, which itself is an even smaller nonprofit. Um, you talk about recruitment. That is, of course, one of the biggest challenges here in Atlanta. And I've listened to all the episodes y'all have done thus far. It's one of the biggest issues across the whole country and across the USAFL. And so, regardless of position, secretary, at large member, just new player on the team, what have you, I think that's the role we all find ourselves in, is figuring out how to find more folks and bring them into this beautiful game. So,
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously going to be a struggle for any club outside of Australia to continue the momentum that you can get in one season. Then the next season it'll drop off, then it'll come back. It's obviously kind of a roller coaster, but Yeah, what you were saying about, like, organizational skills, it's always funny to me, like, how footy can kind of give you life skills and life lessons, whether it's your professional life, your personal life, whatever it is, there's always stuff there that you can kind of grab onto and use, in your day-to-day life, so it's great that you're able to, kind of have the best of both worlds, be part of a fun sport and have fun with your mates, but also be able to put those skills that you use at work, to use elsewhere. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of turning the page a little bit. Of course, you mentioned recruiting. You guys have the AFLS program up and running, which is just kind of a more laid back social approach to the game, not full contact, co-ed. How have you guys been doing with that?
Sure. So we've been running that, I think, about 3 or so odd years now, and really it is, as you noted, a direct response to our recruitment challenges, but also it's part of our just drive to expose more folks to the game, whether they desire to play for the Kookas and travel and put their body on the line or no. And it's been good. We peaked in our first season, honestly, with about 50 or 60 players, and we had 3 to 4 teams going on any given Saturday, and it's fallen off during different parts of the year to where we'll have the better part of 20 players out there. But I think the value in that, even as the numbers fluctuate, is that a lot of the folks that come out represent demographics that don't necessarily convert for the Kukas, and therefore we might not have been able to reach otherwise. And that even includes some really experienced Australians who can come out and teach a lot of our active Kukas players a lot, but are not looking to play full contact and travel at this point in their career, both professional and sporting. And then it also includes folks that I don't think would work up the confidence to show up if they didn't know that we had a non contact social co ed version of the game. So it's been a great tool for a number of reasons. And it keeps us fit in the off season and moving around and practicing our ball skills. So I think it's a win all the way around.
Oh, definitely. And now bringing Kraz onto the program. Of course, he's also been doing AFLS with the Rome Redbacks, who, contrary to popular belief, are not just a metro side; they are a full side. So, Kraz, how's it been going up in Rome?
Pretty good, thanks, Rick. We actually have attempted to do some AFLS so far, but really haven't been able to get over the line to have enough players. But um, Ryan can probably relate some of this as well. We always have seen also that AFLS and that type of program can benefit a club financially, not only with players that are potentially can move on to a bigger game, but providing that fee structure for those games, fund that sort of that opportunity to play and to bring those people together. It's a sort of win-win. I think it takes a little bit of organising, but if it can be self-funding, I think it's a type of program that should be looked at in far more cities. I know there's a few cities around the country that are playing what they call Osball. I know Denver is Sacramento, and certainly up in the northwest as well. But I don't really see a reason why any club couldn't organise these types of games where they're low key, low pressure, no contact. The Atlanta version of the game is similar, I believe, to the one that Dennis Ryan started in Baltimore, which is a 3 second rule. So basically, players have 3 seconds to get rid of the game. But, the Rome team, we're growing slowly. Picked up actually a couple of players today that are close by in Alabama because we're only about 15 minutes from the Alabama line here in northwest Georgia. So, we're looking to grow slowly, and from a very small town of only 35,000 people, the potential is not huge, but at the same time, there is the opportunity for the outlet for people who haven't been involved in this type of sport to make it something that they might want to try out. So,
Yeah, it's always kind of interesting, particularly when you get new American recruits in like a social setting, because, obviously they're still learning the game, they're still learning the skills. And obviously, you never really know kind of where they're at in terms of are they going to be able to come to training consistently? Are they going to be able to register and commit to the full season? Are they still kind of on the fence? Because a lot of times, in my experience, at least in LA, Lots of people do get hooked straight away and they're really committed, but at the same time, there's also people who just either they don't have the time or they just aren't able to commit at the moment. So, practice makes perfect, and it's definitely worth staying patient. If you can get players on the email list or on the Facebook group, uh, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be able to come back, or they'll, reach out to you in the future, maybe when they're less busy and have more time to maybe come down to more trainings consistently. Because sometimes in the past in LA, we might have been a little haphazard in terms of you know in terms of getting people to come back. But now that we've got a more dedicated social media team and recruitment team, uh, every single time, without question, we're getting people's numbers, we're getting people's Facebooks, we're getting people's Instagrams, and reaching out to them. If they aren't able to come back for a month, we'll just say, hey, if you guys want to swing by again, you're more than welcome to have a kick with the Dragons. So it's definitely different everywhere you go, but again, persistence pays off.
Yeah, as you alluded to, patience is the thing there, and Ryan can probably agree with me here that we have no expectations for anyone who comes down to play AFLS. You want to come down and play, that's fine. Sure, we gather email addresses and things like that, and that little group within itself, the AFLS group in Atlanta, has over 120 people in the email list at the moment. And yeah, there are other things they can get involved with as well if they'd like to. But there's certainly no pressure applied whatsoever. And as Ryan said, it's about expanding the reach of the game and some Australian culture as well, perhaps to, just a wider community. There's plenty of opportunities in a city like Atlanta of around 5 million people. There's only one way, and that's up. So.
Definitely. And going back to you, Ryan, what are the club's priorities as of right now heading forward with Atlanta?
We actually had a pretty robust planning strategy sitting here in the living room of my house where I am right now, not too many months ago. And really, I focused most of that meeting on issues of recruitment and kind of brand awareness. And partially that's because my previous role, I was a regional director of recruitment, and it makes sense in my brain. And really, again, I think that's what everything anchors on is we can have all the plans we want for a building fund and creating a more permanent space for our team, for what we want to see on and off the field in terms of social and on the pitch performance. But if we don't have the bodies and man and woman power to execute it, we're just not going to get there. So really, we've just got to keep expanding our reach, and I think social is one vehicle for that. Kookas is another vehicle for that. We've had Metro Series in some years as a vehicle for that, and we've got to just keep exploring as many ways to get in front of folks as possible. And the rest will follow, the results on and off the field. So that's the priority right now. And I did just want to circle back to something Krazz said, because I do think clubs should hear the business kind of value proposition to these social leagues as well, not just the recruitment proposition. And as small nonprofits with limited resources, and most teams, I assume, don't have any paid employees or very few folks that might earn a stipend for some things, earned income is going to be one of the main kind of revenue streams. There's not a lot of grants you can write for a whole bunch of adult men to go play travel footy on the weekends. Folks want to invest in youth and women in sport. There's not big sponsorship deals on the offer for clubs our size. But if we can add a value to the community, whether it's to youth or to folks in a co-ed league or to corporate teams that might want to look for an outlet, there is the opportunity for that earned income. And what we're really trying to figure out how to scale that too as a separate effort alongside the Kookas, so that we can generate that income and keep growing the reach.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, I know you guys are working hard, developing a plan, and kind of switching gears a little bit. The schedule is out for 2020, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. You guys excited?
I'm excited. I think a lot of the players are excited as well. We've been really intentional these last couple years, and Krazz has done the heavy lifting here, from founding teams like Rome and supporting teams like Savannah and Jacksonville, and enlisting support of our board members to help those teams as well. But we really wanted a local schedule. It's something where if we draw folks out, we can get them to take a road trip down to Savannah. It's a beautiful destination, a great place to be, both socially and for play. We can go right up the road to Rome. It's a lovely little college downtown on the river. Jacksonville's not too far away flying or driving. So most of our games, the super majority, are in the state of Georgia, which is something that would have been impossible as recently as 1 or 2 years ago without the expansion of Savannah and Rome. So I think that's what we're excited about, is growing footy in the South, and in particular in the Georgia, Florida area.
Definitely.
And excited by seeing what's happening. I've listened to the previous episodes up in Memphis and some of the other activity we have going on in the Deep South.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. And I think you guys are in a really good spot in terms of trying to get more numbers, but also being able to, lend a hand to the new guys on the block, the Jacksonvilles, the Savannahs, all those guys. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. And oh, go ahead, Krazz.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one of those, the reasons why we've been working on our local, well, not so local, but regional area so much. The Kookaburras have been around for 20 odd years, and we've been driving a long, long way to play games in Baton Rouge. Nashville was always our closest team at 4.5 hours, but into the Midwest as well. And I did some research on our player retention rates, because I know that's of concern to every club in the country. And so I looked recently on all players that had played between 10 games and 50, and there were actually 76 of those players, and only 20% of the players who had played 10 actually made it to 30. So we have an 80% attrition rate from from 10 games up to 30. And that's through a multitude of reasons. Atlanta is a very transient city. People come here to work or to study and then move on. Australians the same. But also it's because of the travel after 2 or 3 years, and especially because our normal recruiting age group is between 27 and 35. There is that family commitment type of thing that kicks in, and those sort of players are never going to be, or not always going to be able to continue on the travel schedule that a club like ours was demanding to survive. There are a couple of other little things that has affected that particular, reduction in players, and that rather poor retention rate. But it was pretty alarming to see that we'd lost 80% of our players before they'd reached 30 games. So and that is why we've been working hard on helping Savannah and Jacksonville, and I've established the Rome team as well. And I've looked into other areas as well, parts of Alabama, South Carolina, have a good contact there in Greenville that we've spoken to, and just growing the game regionally, because it is just really tough when you're asking players to travel 4 or 5 times away, and the costs involved, not only the time away, but the costs involved. So.
Yeah, that's always going to be tough. And like you said, when it's slightly older players, late 20s, early 30s, uh, it's an added challenge because the family angle, and because people always have things going on where they might not be able to prioritize footy. But going back to road trips a little bit, and I guess this is my last question for you, Ryan. When it comes to Eastern regionals, obviously it's going to be up in Cincinnati this year. And are you guys hoping to take a full 22-person side, or what's the plan?
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear Kraz weigh in on this too. I think 22 is an ambitious number given our recent numbers. But what I will say is I think we're going to get as full a side as we ever get to a regionals. The reality is prior to the implementation of some of these other Southern teams, Cincinnati would have been our second or third closest away trip, which is kind of hard to believe that from Atlanta to Ohio could be considered a close-ish trip. But that's kind of the
Yeah.
reality of our region. And so I think we'll get good numbers up there. We took a good team up there last year and gave them a good game, a combined team, a good game up there, the Ohio Valley team. and they
Nice.
returned a trip down here with fewer numbers than we brought to them. So we'll look to make good on our ability and will to travel again this time, and hopefully take it to them.
One of the focus of the teams here in the South has been the development of the Savannah tournament, which the USAFL now is giving us some support with, which is great. That event last year was a really, really good weekend. And, we've had Justin Ward from the Savannah Hurricane on the podcast before, if anyone wants to go back and listen. But it's a nice little central location for a couple of teams. I believe North Carolina are coming down for that event this year, and as well as Jacksonville. It's just 2 hours for them and a couple of the South Florida teams. But also, we also have a three-way, what we're calling the Deep South Cup, which is Atlanta, Jacksonville, and Savannah. The Rome team, my Rome team players will hopefully join in with that in some small way, but that's a little three-way event with teams that are only 3.5, 4 hours apart, but that we can sort of build on for maybe not just this year, but as we move forward.
Yeah, and then hopefully that can expand a little bit to where you get Fort Lauderdale and Tampa getting in on the action.
Yeah, that's true. They're a little further south, obviously. It's a fair hike. I think I've driven Fort Lauderdale before. It was 12 hours. It's a long way. Tampa is, I think, 8 hours from Atlanta. Not inconceivable, and we've certainly done it before. We've played in Tampa quite a few times. But but Savannah and Jacksonville, and maybe a team somewhere else there, Orlando or somewhere in Clearwater or Florida or somewhere like that, would really bolster the southern clubs and start to give us an opportunity to work on those retention rates that we have identified as falling away because of one of those reasons, having to get on the road so much.
I was about to say Orlando would be a perfect spot just for not necessarily for a team. I mean, a team there would be great, but just as a tournament site, because that would almost be, pretty close to the center in terms of Tampa, South Florida, Jacksonville, Savannah, and Atlanta. That would honestly be it's not quite halfway from all of those, obviously, but it's still, relatively close. So hopefully you guys could make that happen in the future.
Yeah, there's a couple of ex Fort Lauderdale players, I believe, in Orlando, and we've had some sprinkling of communication with people in that area, and there's certainly, I'm pretty sure there'd be a facility there, and I think there's probably a fairly good expat community in Orlando. I know there's a couple of ex Cookers in that area, and the Jacksonville actually. You might have heard Andrew Bay from Jacksonville on our podcast previously. He was a former Kookaburra player who'd moved down to Jacksonville. I think there'd be a reasonably amount of expat Aussies in that particular area as well as there is in most parts of Florida, really.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a growing area, and there's definitely, like I said, there's a lot of potential there. So it's good to see all that happening. And going back to the Savannah tournament, you guys are definitely hoping to bring uh, close to a full side for that, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I think we expect as we support the development of these other teams in the South that we should show up with the greatest numbers to Savannah. If
Yeah.
not, we've got lapped by some of our friends that we've helped get going, and that's a problem. Although that's also a motivator. And,
True.
obviously, I haven't gone down there last year, and we have multiple trips planned down there this year, not just the Invitational. Those are the ones that I circle on the calendar because they're also a great trip to bring the wife and really make a couple days of it. And I'll say it to any folks that are on the fence, considering whether they should make the tournament this year or next. That is going to be a destination tournament in USAFL. Historic downtown Savannah is a beautiful place to go out. It's one of the most walkable cities in the country. You can carry your beverage from establishment to establishment. So
Always a plus.
and it's just a beautiful place to be. So it's going to be a great time.
Oh yeah, I can see that tournament getting really big, and wishing you guys all the best.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and you guys are gonna be starting again, we talked about the schedule a little bit. You guys are gonna be kicking off the year officially on the 28th of this month, right?
Yeah, we'll be up in Rome, facing off against Krazz and the Redbacks up there. And, we've just had our first official practice last week. It's warming up here in Atlanta despite the incessant rain. We're coming on to the tail end of our first social season for the year. So, we've been out having a run for about 4 or 5 weeks now and ready to get out there and have some contact. I personally am nursing a broken foot right now, but that didn't stop me from playing a game of social and 2 games of soccer on the weekend. So looking forward to having another go.
Love it. Is it gonna be a 9-a-side or a 12-a-side, or what's the plan?
Yeah, each time we've played Rome, we've kind of taken it as it comes in terms of the numbers. We'll hope to take up a healthy roster and supplement what they've got going there. I would think nines would be a good look given the pitch that we play on up there. Um, that's a good amount of space for about that many players. And if we have more, we'll be pleasantly surprised and rotate a bit and let folks run as hard as they can while they're out there.
There you go. And then hit the pub afterward. So,
Yeah, we have a really nice pub, cheeky bar by the river in Rome. So it's and they're our sponsor, so it's a pretty nice spot. And just going back to the Savannah tournament as well, at the moment that is slated as a 9 to 12s style tournament. So teams that are still interested can still come to that event. We're likely to join a couple of teams together, and also the same for the women development. The women here in the south are numbering few, but we're certainly looking for teams that are interested in coming down to Savannah for that weekend. Can combine together, and we'll hopefully get a game there as well. The field here that I have in Rome, or we have, I should say, is not super big, but has probably potential to play a solid 12s game. As Ryan said, we'll see how it goes, and that's the way most teams, I think, at the early part of the season, who don't have huge numbers, make that quick assessment on the day. And as long as everyone gets a decent run and enjoys themselves, and it's all good. So
yeah, there you go. So, yeah, you heard it here first. And obviously, like I said, we're really excited for you guys. And as we said previously, we've highlighted Southeastern footy teams quite a bit on the podcast, and we're really excited to see the sport grow as much as it has.
yeah, the mention of the Rome team today sort of rounds out our 9 teams that we were looking at who started in the last 2 years. Pretty happy about the way footy is going here in the deep south, as we call it. And I said to someone the other day, the weather has just got warmer. It's actually getting into the 70s tomorrow, so it's only like 3 weeks from summer. So
Something like that. There you go.
it's a pretty short spring here down south. Don't worry.
Hmm. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, Ryan. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to pop on by, and we'll be sure to touch base with you later in the season.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to join y'all, and I appreciate the work that y'all are doing, and I'll keep on listening for the rest of these, even if I don't listen to this one. It's always so weird to hear your own voice. So
True. I'm learning to kind of love mine. Yeah.
there you go.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. Have a good one.
Cheers, Ryan. See you maybe on the weekend.
Yep.
Outside 50 is brought to you with the help of Play Aussie USA. Play Aussie is the only place in the USA you can buy the famous Sharon football, a proud sponsor of the USAFL. Visit them at playaussie.com.